When you're tired of being strong, let God hold you. There are moments when being strong feels heavier than being broken. You wake up, and before the day even begins, you already feel tired. Not just in your body, but in your heart. Tired of holding everything together. Tired of being the one who stays calm, stays faithful, stays hopeful. Tired of being the person everyone expects to be okay. If that's where you are right now, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to be stronger than you already are. You're allowed to rest here. Sometimes strength looks like endurance, but sometimes strength looks like finally letting go. There's a quiet exhaustion that comes from always being the one who stands, the one who keeps going, the one who prays even when answers feel distant, the one who smiles even when your heart feels heavy. That kind of tiredness doesn't always show on the outside, but God sees it clearly. He sees the effort it takes to keep showing up. He sees the nights you fell asleep still carrying worries. He sees the mornings you asked for strength one more time. And He is not asking you to push harder. He is inviting you to rest. This prayer is not a call to do more. It is an invitation to stop trying to carry everything alone. Right now, you don't have to be strong. You don't have to hold yourself together. You don't have to prove your faith by enduring in silence. You can simply be held. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let your body know it is safe to stop striving for a moment. God is not disappointed in your weariness. He is not measuring your strength. He is not waiting for you to recover before He comes near. He is already here. When you're tired of being strong, God does not step back. He steps closer. He does not tell you to stand taller. He offers to carry what you no longer can. There's a deep relief that comes when you realize you don't have to hold yourself up anymore, that you don't have to have the right words or the right posture or the right level of faith. You only have to allow yourself to rest in His presence. This is a place where effort ends. This is a place where pressure releases. This is a place where you are allowed to be human. If your heart feels worn down, bring it here. If your strength feels thin, bring it here. If you're tired of being strong, you're exactly where you need to be. God is not asking you to be brave right now. He is offering to hold you instead. And as we continue, we will gently place down the weight you've been carrying, one piece at a time, without rushing, without forcing, without expectation. For now, stay here. Breathe. You don't have to be strong in this moment. God is holding you. When you're tired of being strong, it often means you've been strong for a very long time. Not for a moment, not for a season, but day after day, quietly, faithfully, without much space to rest. You learned how to hold yourself together because you had to. You learned how to keep going even when you felt empty. You learned how to pray while carrying doubt, how to smile while feeling overwhelmed, how to reassure others while your own heart needed comfort. And maybe no one ever told you that it's okay to stop. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from doing too much in a single day, but from doing everything alone for too long. It settles deep inside you. It shows up in small ways: shorter patience, heavier sighs, a constant feeling that something is weighing on you even when nothing obvious is wrong. God sees that tiredness. He sees the strength you've been using just to get through ordinary moments. He sees how hard it's been to keep trusting when answers didn't come quickly. He sees the effort it took to stay faithful when encouragement was scarce. And He is not asking you to prove anything anymore. Strength was never meant to be permanent. Endurance was never meant to replace rest. Even the strongest hearts need a place to soften. Right now, you're invited to set down the version of yourself that always has to cope. The version that says, "I'm okay," even when you're not. The version that keeps moving because stopping feels unsafe. Here, you don't have to manage your emotions. You don't have to explain your faith. You don't have to know what comes next. You can simply be honest. God does not need you to perform strength in His presence. He already knows the weight you've been carrying. He already understands the quiet exhaustion behind your prayers. Sometimes we think being strong means never falling apart. But often, true strength is allowing yourself to be held when you can't hold yourself anymore. So if you feel like your strength is running out, that is not failure. That is a signal that it is time to stop pushing and start resting. God does not meet you with disappointment in this place. He meets you with compassion. You may feel like you've reached the end of your ability to keep going, but God's care does not depend on how much strength you have left. His presence does not withdraw when your energy fades. He stays, and in staying, He invites you to let go of the pressure you've been putting on yourself. You don't need to be strong enough to face everything today. You don't need to carry tomorrow's worries on top of today's fatigue. You don't need to hold your heart together with effort and control. You can let God hold you instead. That doesn't mean everything suddenly feels easy. It means you're no longer alone in carrying what feels heavy. It means you're allowed to lean, to rest, to stop bracing yourself for a moment. If you notice tension in your body, allow it to soften. If your breathing feels shallow, let it slow down. You don't have to rush through this moment. Nothing is demanding your strength right now. God is not waiting for you to recover before He draws close. He is close because you are tired. There is something sacred about admitting that you cannot keep being strong on your own. Not because you lack faith, but because you trust God enough to stop pretending. You don't lose God's approval when you rest. You don't lose His love when you feel weak. You don't lose His presence when your strength runs thin. In fact, this is often where His care becomes most tangible. So take another slow breath. Let the weight in your chest loosen just a little. Allow yourself to stay here without expectation. This is not a place of judgment. This is not a place of correction. This is a place of rest. And as we continue, we will begin to gently name the things that have made you so tired. Not to analyze them, not to fix them all at once, but to slowly place them into God's hands, where they no longer have to be held by you alone. For now, remain here. You are not required to be strong in this moment. God is holding you. When you're tired of being strong, it's often because you've been carrying more than you ever meant to carry alone. Not just responsibilities, not just decisions, but emotions that never fully rested anywhere. You carried expectations, some spoken, some unspoken. You carried the hope that things would eventually feel lighter. You carried the fear of what might happen if you stopped holding everything together. And over time, that weight became normal. You may not even remember when you first learned to brace yourself. Maybe it happened slowly. A little more responsibility here. A little more pressure there. A few disappointments you had to absorb quietly. A few prayers that felt unanswered longer than you expected. So you adapted. You became strong because you had to be. You became reliable. You became the one who keeps going. But strength that never rests eventually becomes exhaustion. God understands this kind of tiredness. He knows the difference between strength that comes from trust and strength that comes from survival. And He knows how long you've been surviving. You may feel like if you stop being strong, everything will fall apart. That if you let go, something important will be lost. That resting is risky because it feels like giving up control. But God is not asking you to abandon responsibility. He is asking you to release the weight of carrying it alone. There are things in your life that were never meant to rest entirely on your shoulders. Concerns you replay in your mind late at night. Worries that follow you into the morning. Questions you keep revisiting without answers. You don't have to solve them all here. You don't have to name them perfectly. You only have to acknowledge that they've been heavy. God already knows what you've been carrying. He has seen every silent moment where you held yourself together. Every time you chose endurance instead of rest because it felt safer. And He is gently inviting you to a different way of being. A way where you don't have to stay guarded. A way where you don't have to hold your breath. A way where your heart can soften without fear. You may notice resistance when you imagine letting go. That's okay. Letting go is unfamiliar when strength has been your refuge for so long. It can feel vulnerable, exposed, uncertain. But God does not misuse your vulnerability. He does not rush your surrender. He does not take more than you are ready to give. He simply holds what you offer. So you can begin slowly. You might start by releasing the pressure to be okay. The pressure to have the right attitude. The pressure to carry everyone else's needs while ignoring your own fatigue. You can let God hold that pressure for you. You might release the worry that you're falling behind. The fear that you're not doing enough. The quiet comparison that drains your energy even when no one else sees it. You can let God hold that too. You don't have to empty everything at once. Rest does not require a complete unloading. Sometimes rest is simply allowing yourself to stop gripping so tightly. Notice your breathing again. Notice where your body still feels tense. There is no need to force it away. Just acknowledge it. God meets you in your awareness, not in your perfection. You may feel sadness rising as you begin to rest. That's not a sign that something is wrong. Often, sadness appears when we finally stop pushing it aside. When we give ourselves permission to feel what strength has been holding back. God is not afraid of that sadness. He is not overwhelmed by it. He does not need you to hide it. You are safe to be honest here. When you're tired of being strong, honesty becomes a form of trust. Trust that God will not reject the parts of you that feel worn, uncertain, or fragile. And He won't. He has always known the cost of your strength. He has always seen the effort behind your endurance. And He has always been ready to carry you when you no longer can. So let this be a moment where you stop bracing for what comes next, where you stop preparing yourself for another wave of responsibility, where you stop telling yourself you'll rest later. Later is not guaranteed. But this moment is here. And in this moment, God is holding you, not asking you to explain, not asking you to promise anything, not asking you to be strong, just holding you. As we continue, we will gently move toward trust, not the kind that demands certainty, but the kind that allows you to rest even when answers are still unfolding. For now, stay here. Let your strength rest. Let God hold what you've been carrying. When you're tired of being strong, trust can feel unfamiliar. Not because you don't believe in God, but because you've learned to rely on yourself for so long. Trusting God doesn't always look like confidence. Often, it looks like hesitation, like taking a small step without knowing what comes next, like loosening your grip just enough to see if someone else will hold you. If that feels difficult, you're not alone. Many people learn strength as a form of protection. You become strong because you don't want to fall apart. You become strong because you've learned that relying on others can be uncertain. You become strong because being strong feels safer than being vulnerable. But God does not ask you to abandon safety. He offers you a deeper one. Trust in this place does not mean understanding everything. It does not mean having perfect faith or unshakable confidence. It simply means allowing yourself to rest without guarding every outcome. You don't have to trust God with everything at once. You can start with one small thing. Perhaps it's the worry you keep replaying in your mind. Perhaps it's the fear you haven't said out loud. Perhaps it's the exhaustion you've been ignoring because you didn't feel like you had permission to stop. You can offer that one thing to God. You don't need to find the right words. You don't need to explain it clearly. God understands what you mean even when you don't know how to say it. Trust begins where effort ends. It begins when you stop trying to manage how this moment should feel. When you stop correcting your emotions. When you stop telling yourself that rest must be earned. God does not measure your worth by your endurance. He does not value you more when you keep pushing. He does not withdraw when you finally slow down. He stays close. If you've been afraid that resting means falling behind, allow yourself to consider this. What if rest is not a pause from life, but a return to what sustains it? What if strength is not something you must produce, but something that is given when you stop striving? God's presence does not wait for you at the finish line. It meets you here, exactly where you are. You may notice thoughts trying to pull you back into control, reminding you of what still needs to be done, what still isn't resolved, what still feels uncertain. You don't need to fight those thoughts. You don't need to silence them. Just let them pass. This moment is not asking you to plan. It is inviting you to rest. Trust does not demand certainty. It simply allows space. Space for your heart to breathe. Space for your mind to settle. Space for God to carry what you've been holding. If you feel a quiet resistance inside, an urge to tense up again, be gentle with yourself. That resistance is not disobedience, it is habit. And habits take time to soften. God is patient with you. He does not rush your trust. He does not push your surrender. He waits with you. And waiting with God is not empty time. It is filled with presence, even when nothing dramatic happens. So stay here a little longer. Let your shoulders relax. Let your breathing slow. You don't need to decide anything right now. You don't need to promise anything. You're allowed to rest in uncertainty. As we continue, we will gently move toward release. Not the kind that feels forced, but the kind that happens naturally when you realize you are not alone in carrying your life. For now, remain here. Trust does not have to be loud. It can be quiet. God is holding you. Even here, when you're tired of being strong, release doesn't happen all at once. It happens in layers, quietly, almost unnoticed. Release begins when you realize that holding on has been costing you more than you thought. Not just energy, but peace, but tenderness, but the simple ability to rest without guilt. You may have told yourself that letting go would mean giving up, that if you stopped carrying everything so carefully, something important would be lost, that your strength was the only thing keeping life from unraveling. But God is not asking you to drop everything at once. He is inviting you to loosen your grip, just enough to breathe. Release is not the same as abandonment. It is not neglect. It is not indifference. Release is trust practiced gently. There are things you've been holding with clenched hands, concerns you revisit again and again, responsibilities you never set down, emotions you keep contained because they feel inconvenient or unsafe. You don't need to force yourself to release them. You only need to notice how tightly you're holding. Awareness itself is the beginning of rest. You might notice that even in quiet moments, your body stays alert, your jaw tight, your shoulders lifted, your breathing shallow. These are signs of a strength that never turns off. God does not ask you to shut it off completely. He simply invites you to rest it. So you can begin by offering God the tension itself, not the problem behind it, not the outcome you're worried about, just the tightness, the pressure, the effort. You can say, even without words, "This feels heavy," and that is enough. God receives what you offer without judgment. He does not correct how you release. He does not demand that you do it perfectly. He accepts it as it is. Sometimes release feels like relief. Sometimes it feels like sadness. Sometimes it feels like nothing at all. All of it is welcome. If you feel emotion rising as you begin to loosen your grip, allow it to come without trying to explain it. Often, emotions surface when they finally feel safe enough to be felt. God does not rush past your feelings. He does not minimize them. He stays present with you in them. You may have learned to be strong by staying composed, by keeping things orderly, by not letting emotions interrupt your responsibilities. But here, composure is not required. Here, honesty is enough. Release does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying alone. There is a difference. You can still care deeply without exhausting yourself. You can still be responsible without being burdened by constant pressure. You can still love without draining yourself dry. God teaches this gently, not through instruction, but through presence. As you sit here, notice what begins to soften. It may be small, a slightly deeper breath, a quiet exhale, a subtle easing of tension. These are signs that release is already happening. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to measure it. Rest unfolds naturally when you feel safe enough to stop striving, and safety does not come from control. It comes from being held. If your mind tries to return to worry, gently bring it back, not by force, but by awareness. You're allowed to be here. Nothing is required of you in this moment. God is not evaluating your progress. He is not checking how well you're resting. He is simply with you. Release grows when you realize that God's care does not depend on your vigilance. His presence does not disappear when you stop watching everything so closely. He remains. So let this moment be what it is. Not a solution. Not a turning point you must remember later. Just a place where you stop carrying everything by yourself. You may not feel completely different when this prayer ends, and that's okay. Release is not measured by immediate change. It is measured by willingness. Willingness to stop forcing strength. Willingness to rest without apology. Willingness to trust that God can hold what you cannot. As we continue, we will move gently toward reassurance. Not reassurance that everything will be resolved, but reassurance that you are not alone in what remains unresolved. For now, stay here. Let your hands unclench. Let your heart soften. You don't have to be strong here. God is holding you. When you're tired of being strong, reassurance doesn't always come as answers. Often, it comes as presence, a quiet sense that you are not facing this moment by yourself. A subtle awareness that you don't have to keep watch over everything. A gentle reminder that even when nothing changes outwardly, something within you is being steadied. God's reassurance is rarely loud. It does not interrupt. It does not insist. It settles. You may have been waiting for reassurance to look like clarity, clear direction, clear solutions, clear outcomes. But clarity is not always what tired hearts need most. Sometimes reassurance simply means knowing that you are seen, known, and cared for exactly as you are. God sees the effort it has taken to stay strong. He knows how long you've been holding on. He understands the cost of endurance when rest feels out of reach, and He does not respond with demands. He responds with nearness. If you feel uncertain about what comes next, you don't have to resolve that uncertainty right now. If questions remain unanswered, you don't have to force peace around them. Reassurance does not erase uncertainty. It allows you to rest inside it. You're allowed to not know. You're allowed to feel unsure. You're allowed to pause without direction. God does not withdraw when your confidence wavers. He does not step back when your faith feels quiet instead of bold. He remains present, steady, and attentive. There is comfort in realizing that God's care is not fragile. It does not depend on your emotional stability or your spiritual strength. It does not disappear when you feel overwhelmed. It stays. You might notice that your mind still tries to reach for certainty. That's okay. Minds are trained to look for control when safety feels uncertain. But here, safety is not something you need to create. It is already given. God's reassurance does not require you to calm yourself perfectly. It does not ask you to quiet every anxious thought. It simply invites you to rest your attention here, where you are held. You don't need to interpret what you're feeling. You don't need to label it correctly. You don't need to understand why strength feels so heavy right now. You only need to allow yourself to be present. If reassurance feels distant, that does not mean God is far away. Sometimes reassurance arrives slowly, like warmth returning after a long cold season. It may not be immediate, but it is steady. God's reassurance is patient with your pace. He does not rush you into peace. He does not insist that you feel better right away. He walks with you through the tiredness. As you remain here, notice what feels slightly more grounded. Perhaps your breathing has slowed. Perhaps the urgency has softened. Perhaps the pressure to perform strength has eased, even just a little. These are signs of reassurance taking root. You don't need to hold on to them. You don't need to analyze them. Just allow them. God's presence does not need your effort to remain. It is not something you can lose by being tired. It does not fade when your strength does. It surrounds you quietly. When you're tired of being strong, reassurance is not a command to keep going. It is permission to stop pushing, to stop bracing, to stop proving. You are already enough here. As we continue, we will gently turn toward acceptance. Not acceptance of everything that has happened, but acceptance of where you are right now. acceptance that allows you to rest without resistance. For now, stay here. Let reassurance settle where it can. You don't have to rush it. God is with you. When you're tired of being strong, acceptance can feel like the hardest step. Not because you don't want peace, but because acceptance often means stopping the quiet argument inside you. The one that says you should be handling this better, coping more gracefully, believing more confidently. Acceptance is not agreement with everything that has happened. It is not approval of pain. It is not surrendering hope. Acceptance is simply allowing yourself to be where you are without resistance. You may have spent a long time trying to push past this tiredness, telling yourself it will pass if you just try harder, if you stay focused, if you remain faithful enough. But effort has limits, and your heart has been reaching them. God does not ask you to deny that. He invites you to stop fighting the truth of your fatigue. Acceptance begins when you say, even quietly, "This is where I am." Not with frustration, not with judgment, just with honesty. God meets you in that honesty without trying to change it. You don't need to be further along. You don't need to feel stronger by now. You don't need to understand why this feels heavy. You are allowed to be here. Sometimes we resist acceptance because we're afraid it will trap us. That if we admit how tired we are, we'll never move forward again. But acceptance does not trap you. It steadies you. It gives your heart something solid to rest on. God's presence does not depend on you overcoming this moment. He is not waiting on the other side of your strength. He is present in the middle of your weariness. If you notice yourself judging your own tiredness, pause. That judgment has been part of how you survived. It tried to keep you moving when stopping felt unsafe. You don't need to fight it. Just notice it and let it soften. God does not agree with your self-criticism. He does not echo your harsh thoughts. He responds with gentleness. Acceptance allows you to stop carrying shame alongside exhaustion. It lets you release the belief that being tired is a failure. It reminds you that needing rest is part of being human, not a flaw in your faith. You may feel a sense of grief as you accept how tired you are. Grief for the energy you used to have, for the clarity you wish you felt, for the strength you've relied on for so long. That grief is welcome here. God does not rush you past it. He sits with you in it. He understands what it costs to keep going when your heart longs for rest. Acceptance does not mean you stop caring about tomorrow. It means you stop punishing yourself for today. You don't have to plan your next step right now. You don't have to decide how things will change. You don't have to figure out how to be strong again. You can let this moment be enough. As you accept where you are, notice how the pressure eases just a little. Notice how your breathing deepens when you stop arguing with yourself. These are signs that rest is beginning to take hold. God's care does not require you to improve before He stays close. He does not measure your worth by your progress. He remains with you, steady and patient. When you're tired of being strong, acceptance becomes an act of trust. Trust that God will not abandon you in your weariness. Trust that you do not have to earn rest. You are already held. As we continue, we will gently move toward renewal. Not renewal that demands energy you don't have, but renewal that meets you where you are and slowly restores what has been depleted. For now, remain here. Let acceptance settle in your heart. You don't have to be strong to be loved. God is holding you. When you're tired of being strong, Renewal does not arrive as a sudden surge of energy. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed, like warmth returning to hands that have been cold for too long. Renewal is not about becoming strong again right away. It is about being sustained while you're still tired. God does not renew you by demanding more effort. He renews you by remaining with you when effort has run out. His renewal does not rush your healing. It respects your limits. You may expect renewal to feel like motivation, clarity, or excitement. But for tired hearts, renewal often feels much simpler. It may feel like a moment of calm where there used to be tension, a breath that comes easier than before, a sense of being steadied, even when circumstances remain unchanged. That is still renewal. God's work within you is not always dramatic. It is often gentle, patient, and slow enough to be safe. He restores what has been depleted without overwhelming you. If you feel small signs of ease beginning to appear, you don't need to hold on to them tightly. You don't need to make them last. Renewal does not require vigilance. It unfolds naturally when you allow yourself to rest in God's presence. You may still feel tired as renewal begins. That does not mean it isn't happening. Fatigue does not disappear instantly just because care is present. Sometimes the body and the heart need time to trust that rest is real. God gives that time. He does not rush you back into responsibility. He does not hurry you toward productivity. He allows you to remain where you are until strength returns on its own. Renewal is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to yourself without pressure, about remembering what it feels like to exist without constant effort. You are not being rebuilt for performance. You are being restored for peace. As renewal gently takes shape, you may notice that your thoughts become less urgent, that the need to solve everything relaxes, that the sharp edge of exhaustion softens into something more manageable. These are quiet signs of God's care at work. You do not need to measure them. You do not need to compare them to how you think you should feel. You do not need to hurry them along. God is attentive to your pace. When you're tired of being strong, renewal does not demand that you stand up and move forward immediately. Sometimes renewal simply allows you to sit without collapsing. And that is enough. You may still carry questions. You may still feel uncertainty about what lies ahead. Renewal does not erase those things. It gives you enough steadiness to hold them without being overwhelmed by them. God does not promise to remove every weight right now. He promises to carry you while you bear them. That promise is not loud. It does not announce itself. It remains quietly reliable. If you feel moments of restlessness returning, don't be discouraged. Renewal is not linear. It flows gently, sometimes advancing, sometimes pausing. God's presence does not withdraw when your energy dips again. He stays. You don't have to protect this renewal. You don't have to make it permanent. You only need to allow it. As we continue, we will gently turn toward guidance. Not guidance that pressures you to act, but guidance that reassures you that you do not have to walk forward alone, even when you are still tired. For now, remain here. Let renewal unfold at its own pace. You are not late. You are not behind. God is holding you, even as strength slowly returns. When you're tired of being strong, guidance does not arrive as a list of steps. It arrives as companionship. God's guidance in seasons like this is less about direction and more about presence, less about knowing exactly where to go, and more about knowing you are not walking alone. You may have been searching for clarity, wondering what you should do next, how you should move forward, when you will feel ready again. But readiness is not always the first gift God gives. Often, He gives reassurance instead. Reassurance that you don't need to rush. Reassurance that you don't need to decide everything today. Reassurance that being tired does not disqualify you from being guided. God does not guide you by pulling you forward when you are exhausted. He walks beside you, matching your pace. He does not hurry you into strength. He stays with you in weakness. If you feel uncertain about the future, you are not failing at faith. Uncertainty is not the opposite of trust. Sometimes it is the place where trust grows quietly, without pressure. You don't have to see the whole path. You don't have to understand the timing. You don't have to know how this season will resolve. You only need to remain present. God's guidance is not withheld because you're tired. In fact, it often becomes clearer when you stop forcing yourself to be strong. When you stop trying to anticipate every outcome. When you allow yourself to move slowly. There is wisdom in moving gently. You may notice an urge to prepare yourself again, to brace, to plan, to regain control. That urge has kept you safe before. You don't need to reject it. Just notice it and let it soften. God does not compete with your defenses. He waits until you are ready to rest them. Guidance does not always feel like certainty. Sometimes it feels like peace that remains even when answers don't. Sometimes it feels like a quiet sense that you are allowed to take the next step when it becomes clear, not before. You don't need to push yourself into courage. You don't need to force confidence. You don't need to prove that you are ready. God's guidance meets you where you are, not where you think you should be. As you sit here, notice what feels steady. It may be subtle. A sense that you're supported. A feeling that you don't have to carry tomorrow right now. A quiet trust that you will be guided when it is time. That steadiness is enough. You're not being left behind. You're not missing something essential. You're not failing because you feel tired. God's care does not depend on your speed. It moves with you, step by step, breath by breath. When you're tired of being strong, guidance becomes gentle. It does not shout. It does not push. It reassures you that you can move forward without strain. And even if you don't move forward today, even if today is only for rest, God remains with you. There is no expiration on His presence. There is no requirement to hurry. There is no pressure to perform strength again. As we continue, we will gently come toward closure. Not an ending that rushes you back into effort, but a quiet settling that allows you to carry this sense of being held into whatever comes next. For now, stay here. Let guidance remain quiet. Let presence be enough. God is holding you. When you're tired of being strong, carrying this sense of being held into the rest of your day does not require effort. It requires gentleness. You don't need to remember every word from this prayer. You don't need to hold on to a particular feeling or try to keep it from fading. What matters is not how long the calm lasts, but that you know where to return when you need it. Being held is not a moment that passes. It is a reality that remains as you prepare to move forward, whether that means standing up, beginning your day, or simply sitting a little longer. There is no need to rush. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not failing because you feel tired. God's presence goes with you, quietly and steadily. You may encounter moments today when the weight returns, when responsibilities press in again, when the familiar urge to be strong reappears. That does not mean this time of rest was lost. It means you are human, and when that happens, you don't have to start over. You don't have to retreat completely. You can simply pause, just for a breath, and remember that you are not carrying everything alone. Sometimes remembering is enough. God does not require you to maintain a constant awareness of Him in order to stay close. His presence does not depend on your attention. He remains with you even when your focus shifts elsewhere. You are not held only in stillness. You are held in movement. You are held in effort. You are held in tiredness. If you notice yourself becoming tense again, be kind to that part of you. It learned to be strong for a reason. You don't need to silence it or shame it. You can acknowledge it and let it know that it doesn't have to do everything by itself anymore. God is sharing the weight now. You may find that strength begins to return in quieter ways, not as pressure to perform, but as steadiness, not as determination, but as resilience, not as force, but as peace that supports you when things are uncertain. That kind of strength does not exhaust you. It sustains you. As you carry this prayer into the hours ahead, allow yourself to move slowly when you can, to breathe deeply when you remember, to rest your attention on what is in front of you rather than what feels overwhelming. You don't need to solve everything today. You don't need to resolve every emotion. You don't need to be strong in every moment. You are allowed to move gently. God's care is not fragile. It does not disappear when life becomes busy again. It does not fade when you are distracted. It remains quietly present, ready whenever you need to rest again. And you will need to rest again. That is not a weakness. It is part of being cared for. When you're tired of being strong, you don't have to choose between resting and living. You can do both. You can move forward while being held. You can engage with the day without carrying it alone. This is not the end of your strength. It is the softening of it, the kind that allows you to keep going without breaking. As we approach the close of this prayer, there is nothing you need to add to this moment, nothing you need to promise, nothing you need to commit to. Just carry the awareness that you are not alone. God is holding you, now, and in whatever comes next. As this prayer gently comes to a close, there is no need to rush away from this moment. Nothing is asking you to hurry. Nothing is demanding that you become strong again right now. You have allowed yourself to rest. You have allowed yourself to be honest. You have allowed yourself to be held. That is enough, even if your life has not changed, even if your circumstances remain the same. Something within you has softened. Something has been steadied. And that matters more than you may realize. God has met you here, not with expectations, not with correction, but with presence. He has not measured your strength. He has not asked you to prove anything. He has simply stayed with you, and He will continue to stay. As you prepare to move on from this prayer, whether into the quiet of your morning, the busyness of your day, or the stillness of rest, carry with you the gentle awareness that you do not have to face what comes next alone. When the weight returns, as it sometimes will, you can pause again. You can breathe again. You can return to this place of rest without starting over. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not weak for needing rest. Being tired does not separate you from God. It draws Him closer. So if you still feel weary, let that be okay. Rest does not always feel like energy. Sometimes it feels like safety. Sometimes it feels like permission to stop striving. Allow yourself one more slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let your heart remain open. There is nothing you need to hold tightly right now. God is holding you, and as you step forward from this moment, may you do so gently, not trying to be strong all at once, not expecting too much from yourself, simply trusting that whatever comes, you will not face it alone. Amen.